The evening sky hung low with clouds, the kind that carried stories of rain and reflection. The city was alive in its usual rush, cars honking, footsteps echoing, umbrellas clashing in the crowd. Sara held her small purse close and walked quickly down the sidewalk, her mind replaying the long, exhausting day at the office. Deadlines, meetings, and the endless noise of life had drained her spirit. She wanted nothing more than to get home, curl up with a cup of tea, and forget the world for a while. But fate often finds us in moments when we least expect it. As Sara passed by the park, something made her slow down. The streetlights flickered over the empty benches, and the sound of soft crying drifted through the rain. At first she thought it was just her imagination, but then she saw him, a little boy, no older than 6 or 7, sitting alone on a wooden bench, soaked to the skin. His small backpack rested beside him, and his tiny hands covered his face as he sobbed quietly. Sara stopped in her tracks. For a moment her mind went to all the warnings people often share. Don't stop for strangers. It could be dangerous. Someone else will handle it. She looked around, hoping maybe someone else had noticed him. But people just kept walking. Some glanced for a second and turned away, others walked faster, their umbrellas creating a wall between them and the world's pain. Her heart pounded. She was already late. Her phone buzzed with a message from her roommate asking if she was okay. She typed back, "On my way," but her fingers hesitated before hitting send. The child's quiet crying echoed again, soft, helpless and afraid. Sara took a deep breath, tucked her umbrella under her arm and walked toward him. "Hey, sweetheart," she said softly, kneeling down beside the bench. The boy looked up with wide, tear-filled eyes. His face was pale, his lips trembling from the cold. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" He shook his head, clutching his backpack tightly. I can't find my mom," he whispered, his voice breaking. "She was right here, and then she was gone." Sara felt her heart twist. "It's all right," she said gently. "We'll find her, okay? You're not alone now." She took off her scarf and wrapped it around his small shoulders. The boy shivered but seemed to relax a little under her calm voice. "What's your name?" she asked. "Eli," he said between sniffles. "My mom said to stay here if we ever got lost, but it's been so long." Sara nodded, forcing a reassuring smile. "That was very smart of your mom. You did the right thing, Eli." As the rain grew heavier, she opened her umbrella to shield them both. She looked around again. No mother, no police, no one seemed to care. Cars rushed past the park, splashing puddles, and strangers kept their eyes glued to their phones. Sara sighed. "Let's move somewhere dry, okay? There's a cafe just across the street." Eli hesitated but nodded, trusting her. She took his tiny hand, careful and gentle, leading him toward the cafe's glowing sign. Inside, warmth and the smell of fresh coffee wrapped around them. The barista looked up in surprise as Sara guided the dripping child to a chair. "Hot chocolate, please," Sara said quickly. "Extra warm." As Eli wrapped his hands around the steaming mug, Sara called the local police, explaining the situation. Her voice was calm but firm. "Yes, a young boy. Lost in Central Park area. His name is Eli. Please send someone soon." When she hung up, she noticed the boy watching her, his big brown eyes full of confusion and hope. "Thank you," he said softly. Sara smiled, brushing his wet hair aside. "You don't need to thank me. Anyone would have done the same." But deep down, she knew that wasn't true. She'd watched dozens walk past him without a second glance. The thought stung her heart. When did people become too busy to care? Outside, the rain continued to pour, blurring the city lights into streaks of gold and grey. Inside, a small pocket of warmth and humanity bloomed between a weary woman and a lost child. Neither of them knew yet that this small act of kindness would ripple far beyond this moment, touching hearts, changing lives, and reminding everyone that sometimes the simplest act of stopping to help is what the world needs most. Sara took a deep breath and looked at Eli again. He was smiling faintly now, feeling safe for the first time that evening. And in that smile she saw something powerful: hope, trust, and the innocence of a world that could still be saved, one kind act at a time. Sara knelt slowly beside the little boy, her knees soaking against the damp pavement. The streetlights shimmered across the puddles, reflecting the blur of passing cars. The boy's small hands clutched a toy car, its paint chipped and wheels muddy. His face was streaked with tears, and his tiny shoulders shook in the cold evening air. "Hey, sweetheart," Sara said softly, her voice calm but full of concern. "Are you okay? Where's your mom or dad?" The boy sniffled, looking up at her with wide, frightened eyes. I can't find my mommy," he stammered. "She was right here, and then she was gone." Sara felt a pang in her chest. The sincerity in his voice, the raw panic, it reminded her of her younger brother, who had once wandered off in a supermarket years ago. She remembered that helpless feeling too well. "Okay, don't worry," she said reassuringly. "We'll find her, I promise." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small pack of tissues. She gently wiped his cheeks, careful not to startle him. "What's your name?" "Eli," he murmured, his voice trembling. "Well, Eli," Sara smiled faintly. "I'm Sara. And you're safe now, okay? We're going to get you warm and then find your mom." She offered him her umbrella and helped him stand. His little fingers, freezing cold, wrapped around hers with desperate trust. Sara glanced around. The park was nearly empty now, the occasional jogger or passerby rushing by without a second glance. Everyone was busy, everyone had somewhere to be. Across the street, a small cafe's warm lights glowed invitingly. "Let's go there," she said. "We'll get you something warm to drink." Inside, the cafe smelled of coffee, cinnamon, and rain. The staff looked up as Sara entered, drenched and holding the child's hand. "Hot chocolate, please," she said, placing her last few bills on the counter. The barista nodded with a kind smile, preparing the drink quickly. They sat near the window. Eli's eyes followed the raindrops racing down the glass, his breathing slowly calming. Sara handed him the cup, and he wrapped both hands around it, savoring the warmth. "Better?" she asked. He nodded, sipping quietly. "I was scared," he whispered. "Everyone just walked by, nobody stopped." Sara looked down, her heart sinking. "Sometimes people are in a hurry," she said gently. "Sometimes they don't realize someone needs help, but that doesn't mean no one cares." She took out her phone and dialed the local police, reporting a lost child. The dispatcher assured her an officer would arrive soon. While waiting, Sara kept talking with Eli about his school, his favorite cartoons, and the little toy car he refused to let go of. Slowly she watched fear fade from his eyes and curiosity return. He smiled for the first time when she asked, "Is that car a racer or a superhero car?" "It's a superhero car," he said proudly. "It can fly and save people." Sara chuckled. "Then maybe it's a good thing it found me tonight, huh? Looks like we both needed a hero." As they waited, one of the cafe workers came over with a small sandwich and offered it to Eli. "On the house," she said kindly. "Poor kid must be hungry." Eli hesitated, then looked at Sara. "It's okay, eat," she encouraged. He smiled shyly and took a bite, whispering a soft, "Thank you." Minutes passed, and Sara noticed something powerful happening around them. The other customers, who at first had been indifferent, began watching quietly, some with gentle smiles, others with guilt in their eyes. Her simple act had shifted the energy in the room. Compassion was contagious, and they all felt it. Outside, police sirens echoed faintly. The sound drew everyone's attention. Sara looked at Eli. "Hey, I think that's our help arriving," she said warmly. He immediately looked hopeful. "Will they find my mommy?" "Yes, sweetheart," she said, brushing his hair gently. "They will. You're going home soon." The moment the officers entered, Eli squeezed her hand tighter. She smiled, giving him reassurance. "It's okay, I'll stay right here." As the officers began asking gentle questions, Sara felt a lump in her throat. She had done what anyone should do, but she also knew not everyone would. It wasn't about being a hero, it was about being human. The world outside was full of noise, movement, and distraction, yet here, in this quiet cafe on a rainy evening, one simple choice, a pause, a question, a bit of kindness, had created a small miracle of humanity. Sara watched Eli talk to the officer, his voice steadier now. She didn't know who his mother was, or what had really happened yet, but she knew one thing for certain. Stopping for that crying child had changed something in her. She looked outside the window again. The rain had slowed. The world looked softer somehow, like it too was pausing to listen. The flashing red and blue lights reflected off the wet pavement as a patrol car pulled up beside the park. Sara exhaled, feeling both relief and nervousness. The little boy, whose name she'd learned was Eli, clutched her hand tightly. His small fingers were cold, trembling more from fear than from the chill in the air. A police officer stepped out of the car, a kind-faced man named Officer Daniels. He crouched down to the child's level and smiled gently. "Hey, buddy, are you the one we've been looking for?" Eli nodded, eyes still brimming with tears. Sara explained quickly how she had found him sitting alone crying near the bench, and that she didn't want to leave him until help came. The officer thanked her, his expression showing genuine appreciation. "You did the right thing, ma'am. A lot of people passed by tonight. You were the only one who stopped." Before Sara could respond, another car screeched to a halt nearby. The door flew open, and a woman stumbled out, her hair disheveled, her breathing ragged. "Eli!" she cried out, her voice cracking in panic. Eli's eyes widened. "Mummy!" He broke free from Sara's grasp and ran toward the woman. She dropped to her knees, wrapping him in her arms, sobbing uncontrollably. It was a raw, emotional reunion that pulled at every heart present. Sara stood back, her own eyes stinging with tears, watching the mother hold her son as though she would never let go again. The officer walked over and gently placed a hand on the woman's shoulder. "Ma'am, are you all right? We've been searching for your boy for the last hour." The woman nodded through her tears. I was walking him home from daycare when I had an asthma attack. I collapsed behind the store across the street. When I came to, he was gone. I thought," her voice broke, "I thought I'd lost him forever." Sara's heart sank. She couldn't imagine the terror this mother had felt waking up and not knowing where her child was. The officer reassured her. "He's safe now, thanks to this lady here." He gestured toward Sara. The woman turned her tear-streaked face toward her. For a moment she couldn't speak. Then, through trembling lips, she whispered, "Thank you. Thank you so much. You didn't have to stop." "But you did." Sara smiled softly. "I just couldn't walk away. I have a little nephew about his age. I kept thinking, what if it were him?" The woman's eyes filled again. Dozens of people walked by when Eli started crying. I could see it on the CCTV later. Everyone just glanced and kept walking. Maybe they were scared, or maybe they didn't care. Officer Daniels sighed deeply, glancing at Sara. "That's the world now," he said quietly. "Everyone's in a hurry. Everyone's afraid to get involved. Some even thought this boy might be part of a scam, bait to lure someone in for theft. So they ignored him." Sara looked down at the boy, now clinging to his mother's coat, and felt a pang of sadness. How had society reached a point where kindness was suspicious and compassion came second to fear? The mother looked at Sara again, her voice steadier this time. "You've given me something more than just my son back tonight. You've given me hope that good people still exist." Sara shook her head gently. "I think we all just need to remember to stop for a moment and care. Sometimes that's all it takes." The rain had lightened into a mist now, the soft drizzle blending with the glow of the streetlights. The officer offered to give the mother and son a ride home, and Sara waved goodbye as they climbed into the patrol car. Eli pressed his tiny palm to the window and waved back with a small smile. As the car drove away, Sara stood in silence for a while, feeling a strange warmth spread through her chest. She didn't do it for attention or thanks, she just did what felt right. But that small act had changed something inside her. Before leaving, Officer Daniels turned back toward her. "You know, I see a lot of people walk past things like this every day. But you reminded me why I joined this job, to believe there's still good in people." Sara smiled, humbled. "Maybe all we need is to see it once to remember it exists." He nodded. "Exactly." As the last drops of rain fell, Sara started her walk home, her shoes splashing softly in the puddles. The city around her was still busy, still loud, but she noticed things she hadn't before. The old man feeding birds under a street light, the young couple sharing an umbrella, the gentle laughter of a child echoing from somewhere nearby. For the first time in a long while, Sara felt something deeper than just relief. She felt connection. And though she didn't yet know it, this night's act of kindness would soon inspire thousands more once the story spread. That night wasn't just about a lost child being found. It was about a world that had momentarily lost compassion, finding it again through one woman's simple choice to stop and care. The next morning, the city was buzzing with something unusual. Sarah's phone kept vibrating on her nightstand, but she was too exhausted to check it. Her mind was still replaying the previous evening, the trembling hands of the little boy clutching her coat, the mother's tearful gratitude, and that look in the police officer's eyes when he said, "You're one of the few who stopped." When she finally picked up her phone, her notifications were overflowing. Dozens of messages, calls, and tags from people she hadn't heard from in years. Confused, she opened a link sent by a friend. It was a video, security footage from the cafe where she'd bought cocoa for the crying child. The video, posted by the cafe owner, had the caption, "When the world looked away, she stopped to help." It showed Sara kneeling beside the little boy, wrapping her scarf around his shoulders and gently wiping his tears. The simplicity of that moment, the quiet care in her actions, it touched hearts instantly. Within hours, the video had gone viral. People flooded the comments section. "Faith in humanity restored. This woman deserves a medal. She reminded us that kindness still exists." Sara stared at the screen in disbelief. She hadn't done it for attention or praise. She had just followed her heart. But now, thousands of strangers were talking about her, sharing her act as an example of what it means to be human in a world that's often too busy to care. Later that day, a local news channel called her for an interview. Sara hesitated but eventually agreed, thinking maybe her story could inspire others. When the reporter asked, "Why did you stop when others didn't?" Sara smiled softly and said, "Because that's what I'd hope someone would do if it were my child crying alone. Kindness isn't about big things. It's about noticing small moments when someone needs you." That clip spread even faster. Schools started showing the video to students during morning assemblies. Teachers used it to explain empathy, compassion, and courage. Parents showed it to their children, saying, "See, this is what being a good person looks like." A few days later, Sara returned to the same park where she had found the boy. It was sunny this time, the air full of laughter. She noticed several small gestures, people helping an elderly man cross the road, a teenager picking up litter, a mother sharing an extra sandwich with a homeless woman. She smiled quietly. It was as if one small act had planted a seed in the hearts of many. Just then, a familiar voice called out, "Sara!" She turned around. It was the little boy and his mother. The boy ran to her, holding a small handmade card that said, "Thank you for finding my mom and for being my hero." Sara knelt down, her eyes glistening. "You're a brave boy," she said, hugging him. The mother added softly, "You didn't just help my son, you reminded the world to care again." That night, Sara sat by her window, watching the city lights flicker like tiny stars. She thought about how easily people walk past others in pain, how the world has grown so fast that empathy often gets lost in the noise. Yet one quiet choice to stop and help had reminded everyone that goodness doesn't need to be grand, it just needs to be real. She posted one final message on her social media. "You don't have to change the world in a day. Just stop when someone needs you." Sometimes your few seconds of kindness can change a lifetime for someone else. Within minutes, the post began to circulate widely, carrying her heartfelt words across screens and hearts. The video's final scene fades with Sara walking down the same street where it all began. This time, the people she passes look different, more aware, more gentle, more ready to care. A soft narrator's voice says, "In a world full of hurry, she paused, and in that pause, humanity remembered itself." The story closes on a quiet note, the little boy and his mother watching from the park bench, smiling as Sara disappears into the crowd. The message lingers. Kindness costs nothing, but its impact can change everything.